All right, good morning. Welcome back here to Trader Minute. Great to have you aboard. We have a couple cross currents going on in the market here this morning, and one of those is a tendency, and the tendency in this market has been, whether it's gapped up or down, morning rallies get sold, morning sell-offs get bought. And that's been the tendency. It's not been every day. It's not been every stock, but that has been the tendency. So I look at a morning rally here this morning. Man, do I really want to be a buyer? But at the same time, I look at the metric change from yesterday, and then we also have another tendency, Apple up, market up. And look at Apple since the open this morning. It opened up, and it sold off here in about a 5-minute period. It sold off about $1.30. And it has just been ripping. I mean, just ripping higher ever since, and just kind of nonstop. And that's lifting the markets. That's what's driving a lot of the markets here. You look at other things like transports. I mean, there's nothing. You look at you look at things like a Netflix. There's not much here. Facebook, it's down, up, a little bit here, but not exactly doing what the market itself is doing. And Apple is really carrying in a big way here this morning. So we have those two cross currents going on, where you have Apple, and Apple outperforming this morning, which is something that the bulls have to look at and absolutely love, and sit there and go, okay, this is exactly what we want to see. And the bears, sitting there going, do I really want to get short with Apple going higher? But at the same time, you have that market type of cross current. For me, I could go justify a few buys. In fact, I have an order ready for Caterpillar. I've been watching it all morning. The options have actually been trickling down over the last 20 minutes, even though the stock has been fairly flat. It's traded in about $1.50 range here overall. And my concern, and I mentioned it this morning, my concern is that if we see these candles, right, where we have a nice day yesterday and then we kind of get this, small candle, right here near yesterday's highs, my concern is option values are going to collapse. They're going to get crushed. And some of the options that I'm looking at for the challenge, could go down 20 to 25% by Monday, even if the stock doesn't move all that much. If it moves a little bit against me, even worse. So the risk factor of this type of candle is very high out there. Now, one that I've also been watching, and I need the spreads to come in, and that's TLT. This is up a little bit here this morning. I mentioned yesterday near its highs that if it pulls back a little bit, I'd love to go get into some TLT. And it's one that I still would like to get into. And you see that moving above the 7-hour moving average here this morning. My issue with it is the option spreads. When it comes to TLT, if you've never traded TLT, in the morning, the spreads can be nasty. And they're coming in a little bit. It's about a 10% spread now. Here on the 30th of November. So it's down a little bit on the spread side, but still 10% spread, that's pretty hefty, pretty sizable here overall. This morning I mentioned I'll be looking at AMD for a put entry. I did not get one here this morning. Anything I liked for a put entry here on it, at least so far, for AMD. Though if we start to see it come up here around this 2070, 2080 area and reverse, yeah, I'll be really intrigued. The options are expensive, but that's AMD. They're going to stay expensive. It's not something where I would expect that the option prices would start to come in or start to collapse in any major way. I mentioned kind of that Caterpillar chart and that kind of doji action. You take a look at something like Honeywell. There's a lot of charts that look like Honeywell here, where you have the Bollinger Bands collapsing. And you have a nice reversal day yesterday, and then today we're getting that kind of inside candle. And I understand we're only an hour into the market open, so analyzing candles doesn't necessarily do a whole lot, as they can change. But this is something where if it doesn't, and if it just kind of sits here, yeah, the option value is going to come down. We won't break above the 7, still in a consolidation mode. And so, I've been looking for kind of any kind of sign that, hey, these are ready to kind of thrust higher, move on up. In these industrials, we had a pretty strong industrial number here this morning. And one that I think, lends credence to the bullish economic arguments out there. But you take a look at UTX, it's that same type of inside candle. Triple M trying to break into, new short-term highs here overall. But, very similar picture across the industrial complex here. And then, one of my favorites and one that I'd love to be a buyer of is IBM. But it has that exact same action here on it, and I'm not going to play a short-term option with that type of action here with it. If you come and look at it from an hourly perspective, you can see it's still above the 7-hour, but we kind of have this little channel action going on. I need to see that channel action break, for me to go ahead and get in. So, as I look at this market, I go, okay, there's some positives. I know what I'd like to be a buyer of. But, part of me just goes, hey, you know what? Do we see some sellers really come in aggressively into the close? And if so, is there any way to really kind of take advantage of that and to play that? And for me, it's going to be one where I'm not really going to consider it until I see 27.24 break on S&P futures. If I see that level break, then I'll consider it and start taking a look at a few things. But I do think that is a level for the bulls that kind of needs to hold. I don't think that if it breaks, market's going to wash out or anything like that. I don't think we're in that environment here. But it is something where if 27.14 breaks, yeah, that we might see a little washout element come into play. I like some of the price action in the energy names. I don't like the options. For instance, Valero. Here's Valero, and we're above the 7-hour. Okay, great. It's in a buy position on the hourly chart. On the daily chart, we're bouncing off this lower Bollinger Band, off of the collapsing bands, right? And it looks like Conoco. It looks like Phillips 66. But if you come in and take a look at the options on Valero 2 weeks out, okay, the spreads have come in dramatically. They have come in dramatically here. But, we're talking about $2 here for the at-the-money option for 2 weeks. The implied volatility is about 4 points high on this. So if it's flat, I'm going to lose about 15% on my option. If it stays a little flat. So for Valero, that's actually not too bad with how it sits. But definitely not on the cheap side here with them. And kind of that same concern as far as, is it going to move right here and right now? But whether it be Valero, Conoco, they're kind of all in that same position. Conoco had a fresh gap above the 7-day moving average here today. Tends to be a very bullish picture here overall. And then one that I'm not as bullish on, but is giving a pretty nice bullish continuation pattern here today is Pepsi. And, it's one that, I know it's only up 30 cents here today, but nice little reversal yesterday, pushing above the 7-day moving average today. After a little consolidation, there's oftentimes some nice follow through after a move like this, and to see Pepsi push into the 120 mark would not be too surprising. But Pepsi is a little more conservative type of a way to play any kind of upside in the market. Now the trade I actually have ready and ready to kind of push the button on is FXI. This is the China ETF, FXI here, and I'm looking at the 41s, and they're going for about $1.10 right here. They've traded down. They were about $1 earlier this morning, so they're up about 10% here this morning. The spread on it's very good. The value on it's pretty good, and I'm looking at buying about 8 contracts there. Something where a $2 move. I more than double my money there on a $2 move here with it. And when you look at FXI and you look at some of the recent outperformances, it's kind of pushing on up here. It's kind of had most of the day that same type of doji type action. But I know with the FXI generally, and this isn't every day, but generally most days after the first 30 minutes, it kind of will sit there. It doesn't move a whole lot. So I can kind of wait till, this is something where I can wait till a little bit later in the day and get a better value and look to play China's market over the weekend or Sunday night there, and and look to take advantage of a gap up on Monday. And this is something where I'm looking for it to come back to this 43 and a half area. That's my target area for it. And with the U.S. dollar falling a little bit, we're seeing how the market reacted and held up to some of Ross's comments yesterday. I do think path of least resistance is strongly higher here for the FXI, and that's one of my favorite sets here on the board, out there right now and for the day. But I think I can get a little cheaper price later on in the day. I don't think this is something that's going to run away from me in a material way. And if it does run away from me in a big way, it's probably something that has a lot of meaning in terms of significance going into next week. Remember, there's no Thanksgiving in China in terms of they're not going to celebrate the same holiday as here in the U.S. So it's not like that market's going to go through anything similar to what we see. Now, last comment I want to make is I was asked about Santa Claus rallies. And it's something that every time we go into this end of year, any rally we see in the market tends to be called a Santa Claus rally, right? And it's okay, Santa Claus rally. And I've seen December and November be down, and the market go up for 3 days, and it's called a Santa Claus rally, right? Well, here's consumer discretionaries. This is the retail sector, the Santa Claus sector, so to speak, shopping sector. It's had a pretty good pullback, and it's found a little bit of support here in the last couple days, gapping down here today. But, you look at Walmart, it's being driven by earnings. You look at Target being driven by earnings, right? Michael Kors earnings and downgrades. There's some ugliness in the space, right? And it's not something where I'm a big proponent of, hey, here comes Santa Claus. Let me go buy this and this and this for the Santa Claus rally. Okay, great. You know what? If Amazon gives a buy signal, great. I can go out and buy it. Fantastic. But, to buy it off that Santa Claus rally component or element or chatter, I don't think makes a whole lot of sense. Naturally, yep, there will be a rally between now and the end of the year. And when that happens, it will be referred to as a Santa Claus rally. And, that's about it. So I just don't read too much into it. I think there are much bigger patterns in the market, much more important patterns in the market, and things that actually matter. To me, this is just a term given to rallies during this time of year, which, there are always rallies and sell-offs around this time of year. It's, like any market, so I don't read too much there into that. All right? So anyway, those are my thoughts here. This morning, Apple carrying this market, absolutely carrying it, and helping it to push on higher. You can see S&P futures have just continued to go up as Apple has just marched on and marched on. It's up about 330 now. Is Apple, so really helping to carry things here today. He's probably something where if we see a pullback in Apple, the rest of the market will pull back here aggressively. But those are some of the things that I'm looking at. The FXI is probably where I will go, but a little bit a little bit later in the day. And then if we start to see this rally reverse, I may go pick up a few puts, but I do need to see that key level here in the market taken out, this kind of 27-24 level taken out. And outside of that, I do think if the market just chills out above 27.24 and, between here and 27.24, a lot of option prices are going to compress in a big way and may provide some nice bargain hunting into the close of the market today, especially when some of the weekend time decay starts to come out as well. Thanks for hopping on. Have yourselves a great one, and we'll talk to you later. Take care.